Welcome, everybody, to Wizards and Warp Drive, the podcast where two grown-ass men get deeply nerdy about the things they love. My name's Nacho, and joining me as per usual is Mr. AJ Pickett.
How's it going?
Good, mate. How are you? Another
Good,
Sunday?
good. Yep, another Sunday morning.
Any catch up?
Sunny.
What did you think of my intro?
I thought it was good.
I need to go a bit slower.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Yeah, we do have to slow down a little bit when we're talking to Americans and Canadians. They do have a slower cadence of speaking than we do.
Yeah, the closed caption does not work out what the fuck I'm saying most of the time.
No, yeah. And this is live and unscripted, by the way. We don't. It's slightly scripted. We have a schedule, kind of.
I'll get some housekeeping out of the way. So we're now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube.
We're spreading like a fungus.
Yep. So yeah, we're out there now. Just need to probably organise some social media presence at some point.
Yeah.
But what have you been up to, mate?
I've been busy writing as per usual, making videos. That's my main my meal ticket, as they say, my golden goose. And this week it's been some crazy expectation subverting videos on were kobolds and were corpses and slime dragons, and even a diss track to a Twitter comment where I made a acorn dragon video at about 4 hours.
I saw that pop up on my YouTube feed last night, but I haven't got around to watching the acorn dragon. I watched the slime dragon and the were corpse and the were kobold.
Yeah. It's so funny how that came about. Somebody mocks the idea of like there's dragons for everything, and he just spat out the idea of acorn dragon. I was just like, wait a minute, acorn dragon, and yeah, the rest is history.
Nice.
Yeah.
So busy working. I discovered a very niche sub genre of books called lit RPG recently. You heard of that before?
Yep. Oh yes, very much so. I've been reading through a series of one actually.
Yeah. So. Because as you know, I'm running sort of a hybrid of Dungeon of the Mad Mage and Dragon Heist, and someone suggested this one called Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Oh, we should probably explain what lit RPG is to people.
Yeah, I've never heard of it before, but it's basically, it incorporates the elements of role-playing games and fantasy and sci-fi.
Yeah, like the main character is inserted into an RPG game world of some kind, and they know it.
Yeah, it has all the tropes of an RPG game, like leveling up, spells, whatnot. It's like a fantasy game.
Fantasy fulfillment of the author, where they insert themselves into their favorite role playing game, or as the case is most of them, they kind of make up their own role playing system and explain it to you.
I thought that it was going to be a little bit. I didn't have high expectations, but I'm on to book 3.
Oh.
It follows the story of a man called Carl who wakes up one morning to find the Earth has been turned into a massive multi-level mega dungeon by aliens for a reality game, a reality TV show. He's joined by his ex-girlfriend's cat, who now talks, called Princess Donut, and together they must navigate traps, fight monstrous creatures, and solve puzzles while all surviving and being watched and judged by an alien audience. The thing that really sells it is the dude that does the narration, Jeff Hayes. His narration is probably some of the best audiobook narration I've ever heard. He reminds me of Patrick Warburton.
Oh yeah,
in his voice.
I love how dark. He did the tick character, and okay.
Or what's it? Krang? No, we'll get to Krang. Krong. Is it Emperor's New Groove?
Mm-hmm.
It's good, man. It's funny. It's actually, I was expecting it to just be silly, but it's actually got a lot of depth and emotional. You start to get invested into the characters, and they progress. And it's a really. I mean, I'm on to book 3. I think there's 6 of them in total.
Right.
Really, highly recommend.
Last one I read was He Who Fights Monsters, or He Who Fights.
Yeah, I've heard of that one.
Yeah,
He Who Fights Monsters. It's an Australian one, isn't it? That one.
Yeah, it's a pair of authors, and they do it sort of like weekly installments for their patrons. Good system.
So this week though, we're going to dive into a franchise that turns 40. Well, it is 40. It's just turned 40. Turned 40 in May.
Yeah.
So over the last 4 decades, it has spawned multiple TV shows, numerous movies, and a wide variety of comics, video games, and toys. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, Michelangelo.
I'm glad you said it first.
Yep. Heroes in a half shell.
They'll just be them from here on.
I think.
Yeah. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I don't know how many times we're going to have to say the word Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but I don't find
it's abbreviated TMNT.
NT. I find that as awkward to say as well.
Oh, I say it. I've been saying it for many years. It really bothers me.
TMNT.
Yeah, TMNT. TMNT RPG is what we're going to be talking about mainly today, from my perspective. Where I was an early adopter of the comics. I think the first time I was reading them is the early 90s.
So
listening to Melissa Etheridge and Living Colour and other contemporary bands at the time. Jane's Addiction.
Yeah, so the comics have really interesting roots. So Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. So Kevin Eastman caught a bus one day, and someone had left a comic on this bus. And he read it, and he really liked it. It was just a small independent comic, and he noticed it was done by this guy called Peter Laird. Peter Laird had his address there. He wrote a letter to Peter Laird saying, "Hey, I like your comic. Do you want to meet up sometime and do something?" And he said, "Yeah, sure." They ended up hitting it off like a house on fire. Moved into a small apartment together, and then they set up this studio. They called it Mirage Studios because it wasn't really a studio, so it was kind of a play on the word Mirage.
Yeah, it was like Mirage Studios when it's somebody's bedroom. Yeah,
they just sat around in recliners, eating junk food, watching shit TV, drawing cartoons all day. One day, Peter Laird. I think it was Eastman actually. He drew this turtle standing on its hind legs, holding a pair of nunchucks.
Yeah,
he kind of showed it to Peter Laird and said, "Oh, look, it's a Ninja Turtle." And then Peter Laird grabbed it and he drew, a few more turtles and added the word mutant. And then, Eastman went back and added the word teenager. And then all of a sudden they had this just one night, just in front of the TV, they just had these 4 turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and that could have been it. They could have just quite easily. That was it, but
yeah, they were notably not very muscular. They looked kind of like Gumby in a with a turtle shell on. But the gist of it was there. The fact that they all had different weapons was there right from the very beginning. But the nunchuck carrying turtle, and they kind of like were strapped to his forearms right at the very beginning because they weren't sure how the hands were going to work. But yeah, very cool.
So Eastman borrowed $1,000 off his uncle, and they decided to write a first issue, just thinking it was just going to be a one-off. And then they obviously had to come up with some sort of origin for these turtles. At the time, Frank Miller was having a massive run on Daredevil. He just started writing Daredevil for Marvel. So they did a parody of Daredevil. They just stole everything from the Daredevil origin. So like the canister of radiation material, that's the same. Stick versus Splinter, the sensei.
Right.
Stick is Daredevil's sensei.
You're ruining my childhood now. Right now, it's just crumbling around me as you're telling me
the foot.
It was just
so in the Ninja Turtle, we have the foot. In Daredevil, he fights the hand.
Oh, I had no idea it was so derivative. I'm shattered.
Yeah. It was just a complete parody. They meant it as a compliment.
Yeah.
But yeah, they just completely parodied it. They self-funded 3,000 copies, and they're all stacked. There's photos on the internet. They're all just stacked in their little apartment.
Handmade.
They were not even the proper format. They printed them in this weird sort of size that was slightly bigger than the normal format. And they sold out. They made enough money to pay his uncle back his $1,000, and they printed out another 6,000 copies. That sold out. By the time they got to issue 2, they did 15,000 of issue 2 and 15,000 reprints of issue 1. That sold out. By 1985, they were on to their 3rd issue, 50,000 copies. They had enough to actually buy a new studio.
Wow.
So it all started with a guy finding a comic on a bus and deciding to write a letter to this guy, and then them two just sitting in front of the TV one night and just coming up with this dumb idea.
Yeah. I've done things like that where we were talking about other stuff during a role-playing game, and I sketched, because of the conversation, a Murloc in BDSM and fishnet stockings gear, and passed that around the table just to ruin everybody's minds. Murloc with the little fish creatures from World of Warcraft. And you do stuff like that, and that could have easily turned into a comic book character or something, but it was just, like, what do you think of this? Firing one over your bow, break somebody's brain.
They were very similar and very different. So, Raphael is Eastman, is inspired by Eastman's personality, and Donatello is inspired by, I guess, Lard's personality.
Yeah, you got Leonardo's kind of like the leader. He's the, what would you call him? He was the Cyclops from X-Men sort of personality. Wanting to keep the team together.
Leonardo is the discipline leader with the twin katanas. Donatello is the tech genius with the bow staff.
Yep.
Raphael is the muscle, pretty much Wolverine with the twin size.
Yeah.
And Michelangelo is kind of the jokester guy with the nunchucks.
Yeah. So Michelangelo
they didn't have different coloured masks or anything. That was something that was later added in the cartoon.
Yeah, because they were just black and white to start off with. So it was you couldn't separate them in colours.
But yeah, something that gets skipped over in the history of the Turtles. So this is around 84, and we'll get to the cartoon, which was around 87. So before it was successful, this is where AJ's speciality will come up. I'm going to mispronounce this guy's name. Kevin
Simbita.
Mm-hmm. He approached Eastman and Lard. Palladium Games was almost probably in a similar space to maybe Mirage Studios around 85. He really so there was only 2 issues of the comic out at the time.
Mm-hmm.
He contacted obviously Lard and Eastman saying, hey, I want to make a role-playing game and use your characters as IP, and they signed off on it. So that was actually the first licensing of the Turtles. Before the toys, before the cartoon, it was a lot different Turtles then.
This is one of the few things where you can say I was into the Turtles before they got big, and actually it'd be quite accurate.
Yeah. And is it Eric Wachik?
Eric Wujik.
So he actually designed the role-playing game for the Turtles, and he did that in 5 weeks.
Yeah. There are 3 people in the Gen Con, I think it is, basically Hall of Role-Playing Fame, and that is Dave Arneson, Gary Gygax, and Eric Wujik.
Mm-hmm.
So he
sadly passed away as well.
Yeah. But he was the absolute dynamo of the writing team of Kevin Simbita and Eric Wujik. And his concepts and stuff, well, we'll get to them, but it was strung all throughout the role-playing game was his genius, as well as just, the cool IP of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
So, Eastman and Lard didn't actually think they were going to make an ongoing series. They actually thought they were just going to print this one issue. Mm-hmm. In the first issue, I read it recently the other night. It's all up on Amazon. They actually kill off Splinter in the first issue.
Yeah, he gets murdered, killed. Yep. Take out the bad guy.
Yeah. And the reason they did that is they didn't think they were going to make a second issue. So, this role-playing game was only designed around 2 issues of the comic. So there wasn't really any lore, I guess, to the Turtles as of yet. They had an origin story. April O'Neil was introduced in issue 2, I believe, as what's his name? Stockman. As just basically, she wasn't a reporter then as well. She was
more like an assistant,
lab assistant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess you're best explaining what Palladium's megaversal system is and how that's this sort of
Right. So at this point,
fit
Palladium
in.
was one of the early alternate role-playing systems to Dungeons and Dragons, and it was more. They had a fantasy game. They had produced a sort of Vietnam-themed game, which had its own role-playing system, but the fantasy game was what they used as the basis for their role-playing game going forward, and they basically updated it to be a modern version as well. So they kind of Warhammer 40K'd it and took it right up to a post-apocalyptic Earth where high technology and magic were combined in the setting called Rifts. And the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle sort of fit into the era of before they went really high tech with it and introduced this new damage category for like mega weapons and mega structures and mega armor and stuff. They had more of a focus on supernatural stuff and kung fu and guns and superpowers and that sort of thing. And Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is like that golden era where everything's sort of slotted together with the rule system
kind of
perfectly.
Almost like a post-apocalyptic game, wasn't it?
Yeah, they went that way with the Turtles. They went sort of two alternate routes. One was the post-apocalyptic and time travel route, and the other one was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles timeline, where they were used as the vehicle. Like the Guide to the Universe had them in space interacting with the Triceraton Empire and the Utrom aliens and stuff. And then they also went back in time, and that was a lot of kung fu, ninja, ancient Japan sort of stuff, and also a brief foray into the far-flung future.
They made a few supplements. There was Guide to the Universe, Transdimensional Roadhogs, and Truckin' Turtles, I think was the last one.
So the post-apocalyptic ones are the After the Bomb setting and Trucking Turtles and stuff, and those are the ones which is independent of the IP of the syndicated cartoon. So they don't include the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
What is the megaversal system? What does that mean?
Basically, it's a one rule system for multiple different settings that you can use in the game. So if you can play a medieval fantasy game like Dungeons and Dragons, and then you can take that character and throw them right into the future where they're fighting giant walking robots and mutant dog soldiers and dragon hatchling player characters and fit right in. They need some better upgrades for their equipment, obviously, but it's not you can play any setting with any combination.
And that was quite unique to the success of Palladium games and why it was so popular, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a success, and it's also a limiting factor in that it's really hard to update the game when you have thousands of different supplements for different settings and stuff, and they all have to use the same rule system, so you can't update all of them at the same time, unfortunately. You could probably do it these days with PDFs and stuff, but with physical print books, not so much.
I think they are doing a revised.
They've got a Savage Worlds version of Rifts now. So that's a different role playing setting. It's also a universal system that a lot of people prefer. Simpler, it's faster, more dynamic. A lot of Palladium people, a lot of fans of the original system. I am as well, so I don't change it. The only thing I really change is the way I do mega damage, but that's like just personal.
Yeah, I think the revised system is going to introduce. Things that obviously didn't exist in 1985, like mobile phones. Sort of, just modernize it for.
It is really good in that if you're playing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the equipment section and stuff is a perfect snapshot of the 1980s. So the pricing and what's available in the tech section and stuff is literally what was available. There's no extra stuff. There tends to be a lot of anachronism if you're making old school stuff these days, but here's an actual snapshot of what it was truly like. The Heroes Unlimited equipment guides and stuff, and all the firearms and stuff like that, which were available at that time. It's really funny, and it's quite accurate. All you really need to do to play those games is pick up your local newspaper, read what's going on. And our world is crazy enough that you've got.
So it's been
you can throw mutant animals.
It kind of continued with that parody theme that Eastman and Laird. Eastman and Laird did all the art for the RPG as well.
Yep. A lot of them were.
I think they even included the first 2 issues in the back of the book.
Yeah. There was strips of the cartoon all through the book, and whole big page splash art for the characters that were in the adventures in the books and stuff. It was really the game design was really good because you could just randomly roll your character into existence from a set of tables, and they were different every single time, and you could also pick and choose.
So AJ sent me a PDF code. I never played this game. It wasn't on my radar. Kind of what AJ mentioned before, when you live in New Zealand, you're limited to what was locally available.
Mm-hmm.
So this just wasn't a game that was around when I was growing up, where I grew up. But you can choose from a variety of muted animals. You're not just limited to turtles.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yep.
So your first one is you roll animal hero characters, I believe.
Yep. So you've got a lot of different backgrounds for what caused the mutation or the experimentation. Could be natural, could be supernatural, could be some experiment in a lab, like and of course the turtles just met some strange alien goo in a sewer, and that's how they sort of changed. And their mentor was kind of in the same sort of situation. But you may start off as like a rocket raccoon, Guardians of the Galaxy situation.
I've got the PDF in front of me.
Yeah.
So I'm just actually have a look. Okay.
Are you gonna roll up? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I had to roll on the animal hero characters. So I rolled a 40, which is a royal character. So I've got to roll on that one. 53. So I am a horse.
Right. There you go. BoJack Horseman. So
what was a mutation?
Very simply how the system works. It's a point buy system, and it works on how big your animal is to start with. So if you've got an elephant, you've got a whole lot of size, but not a lot of points to spend, because you've kind of reached your maximum potential size wise. So what you do is you shrink that elephant down to human sized, and now you've got all this excess bioenergy points that you can spend on other developmental features. So you're kind of like reducing your mutant animal to genetic Play-Doh, and then spending the points that you've squeezed out of them. A mouse, on the other hand, has got lots of BioE points, but they're really tiny, so you've got to increase their size and spend it that way. And it kind of evens out. It just naturally balances out everything. And the objective is you want to, basically, it's a trade-off between having hands, feet, like hands that are human hands, speech that's like human speech, appearance, which is human. You can look kind of werewolfy. You can look like a full-on wolf man. But you can
the character I just rolled now, I would be a horse that has been deliberately raised as an assassin or warrior.
Oh, wow.
I have experts in martial arts and hand-to-hand combat.
Bad horse, bad horse. Like it. Yeah, I like it. I am the horse that comes in the night. Yeah. So it's already horses hooking you into the possibilities that this game is so infectious. So you spend the points, and you basically want to get human features if you can, or you sort of trade up and exchange some human features for psychic powers or special horse powers. I don't know what special. I guess horse can run really fast. They got good hearing. You can get heightened senses.
Why the long face?
Yeah. Really good at eating oats. I don't know. Yeah, or probably big enough to carry around an M60 machine gun, which is usually the case. You know, I'm trained to kill with my hands and feet, but I've got this grenade. You know, I picked up somewhere.
AJ's got some great videos on Palladium games and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as well.
It's a fantastic role-playing game. Yeah.
And he did sum it up. You can basically become Rocket Raccoon in this game.
Yeah, exactly. If you combine Ninjas and Super Spies was a supplementary role-playing system that came out around the same time that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles did, and it gave you access to like 50 different martial art forms. So the nuance of the rule system in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is such that as you're leveling up, your martial art class is almost like a subclass that you've picked up and cross-classed into, and then you've melded it with your character, so it gives them like all their attacks per turn and stuff is nuanced and variant depending on what martial arts you know. You get skill programs. Like you could be a gadgeteer that makes micro electronics and stuff, and that's very closely tied with what was technically available at the time. So it's really immersive. You can build cybernetic characters and have a budget for how much you can spend on all the technology and stuff, and what implants and things were available. Kind of like their idea of the near future sci-fi. So you can get really cyberpunk with it as well, to have a mutant animal with cybernetics and special training. So it's real James Bond stuff.
Had a different alignment system as well, didn't it?
Yeah. So selfish is kind of like they don't have neutral; they have selfish alignments, and that's more nuanced. So you get a real sort of Han Solo good guy, as opposed to being totally good or totally bad. Yeah. There's a lot more nuance to it. And the experience point system is based on what you do in the game. So if you have a clever but futile idea, that's still worth some experience points, because you're interacting and expressing yourself. It doesn't mean it necessarily has to be all about problem solving. It can also be a performance aspect as well that you're getting awarded for. And you're mainly awarded for milestones and objectives, rather than straight up, this guy is worth this many experience points.
Before 5e.
Yeah. So bad guys don't have experience point totals. They're just elements in play.
Yeah.
They're not a quantity that you have to kill.
I've read the book and I'm keen to play it. It looks really fun.
Yeah.
Really fun.
Oh, it's tons of fun. Yeah. It is nitty gritty, but like you can get round to it's almost like playing the Matrix. It goes combat slows down to bullet time and every little nuance, and so you can really imagine the two-fisted kung fu action. Every little nuance of combat is explored, and it flows quite well. I think there's a lot of people that say it's very crunchy, but
they also gave you the stats for the Turtles and Shredder in the back. I believe
it's what you call a more simulationist game. So it's you go down to the nitty gritty of everything.
It's not really a Turtles game. It's a mutated animal game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because so you're not locked in.
Like I said,
you're not locked into just being. Yeah. Like some thematic role playing games, you're locked into playing the main characters, and they don't really explore anything else. This one, you can play anything. A mutant aardvark ninja, cybernetic rhinoceros, war hero, space exploring cosmic Russian dog, anything with psychic powers. So you can play Rocket Raccoon or that psychic cosmonaut dog. They fit in perfect. You could play Peter Quill and also a mutant alien chick, who was once a reptile. Anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So Guardians of the Galaxy could
be adapted. Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of like what the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Guide to the Galaxy is all about.
So I think 89 this stopped because unfortunately I think the TV show kind of killed it. It gave more of a perception that the Turtles is a kiddies property.
When the syndicated cartoon came along, it was great money for everybody involved, but also killed the cool factor. So it was no longer a niche thing, and it had to be blandified for a general audience.
Do you have anything else to say about the Palladium game, or?
Yeah, tons. Well, that was
just before we move on to the TV show.
Well, the Palladium license ran out not too long ago. I think it was only about 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. I'm not sure exactly when. And then they just switched over to After the Bomb and those settings that didn't involve the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Unfortunately, that means they couldn't reprint the Galaxy Guide or the Transdimensional TMNT or Turtles Go to Hollywood or Trucking Turtles or various other titles. But they could carry on printing like the superhero game and the Ninja Super Spies game and Beyond Supernatural game because they didn't involve the Turtles. But the Turtles just the mutant animal system had already been incorporated outside of the Turtles into various other product lines, so they didn't really lose anything in the role-playing game.
It is going to come out again, isn't it? Was that Kickstarter going to be made public? Or?
Yeah, the Kickstarter has just finished and they're now fulfilling and sending out their products. And so that's a new version of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with new cover art and stuff. Eastman and Laird were back on board. and they were involved in the
I think
development
they
process
actually
as well.
coloured it this time as well.
Yep.
Coloured the art.
Yep. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
You obviously backed it.
Sure did. Yep. One of the few things that I'll prepay for is a good Kickstarter.
Yeah, so I guess as the Turtles grew in popularity, Eastman and Laird were getting approached quite a bit by a lot of different, different sort of people were promising them the world, but they didn't really connect with anyone. But they decided to make a deal with this Playmate Toys. So Playmate Toys also decided. So back in the 80s, you kind of had a cartoon and a toy line released at the same time.
Yeah.
They were there to sell each other.
Yeah.
So the toys and the animated series were created. So obviously they got these comics and they saw the potential, but they were like, we need to soften this a bit for kids.
Yeah, can't have the kiddies running around stabbing each other with sai and katanas and stuff.
Yep. So, I mean, Eastman and Laird, this guy convinced them, and they made a deal that they would release 5 episodes of this cartoon and see how they go and see how they felt about the property, which obviously was very successful. I think Playmate produced around 400 different toys, figures, vehicles, playsets, and in the 4 years of them doing it, they made $1.1 billion.
That's a lot of money.
Just in toys.
That's a lot of plastic, man. That is a lot of plastic.
And the animated series obviously took off as well. So the animated series introduced a lot of elements that weren't in the original comics. So they added the color-coded masks, so you could tell the difference between the turtles.
Yep. The main characters changed around a little bit, but not too much.
Yeah, they added so things like cowabunga and pizza was
their obsession with pizza.
Things that was all added.
Driving around in a van.
A lighter tone, less threatening villains. They made Splinter's origin different.
Yeah.
So in the comic, he was a rat that was mutated by ooze. In the cartoon, he was a human ninja master who was transformed into a rat. They introduced new characters, basically just to sell more toys. So we get big ones were Bebop and Rocksteady. They came from the cartoon. Also, interesting fact I found out that in the UK, apparently it was called Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles because apparently the word ninja is too violent.
Okay. just rule an entire culture inappropriate, England. Yeah, great.
By 1990,
goodness sakes,
did you know that the Ninja Turtles was on TV 7 days a week in America?
What do they call it? A nanny state? 7 days a week? Wow.
Obviously
that's kind of weird how they play things over there. Like they'll have one episode that plays all week. Yeah, they don't do that over here.
And obviously the merchandising, they action figures, cereal, toys, anything you could stick anything on.
Happy Meals.
I was in my teenage years around this time, so it wasn't really for me. But one thing that came out in that era, and you're probably the same, I'm going to throw your memory back, and I've actually still got it. You can't see, I've got a cabinet over here. A classic beat 'em up game came to the arcades. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
4 players,
classic,
side scrolling.
Yeah.
I spent so much money on that game.
It was good. Was this around the time that Mortal Kombat was like the first Mortal Kombat game was around?
89. This was 89. This game,
so it would have been just before that came out. Yeah, and the Simpsons game was really popular at the around the same time.
Yep. Simpsons was similar.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was basically a 4-player co-op arcade game with. Gosh, does anyone call them joysticks anymore? Or is that showing your age?
Yeah, there were very few games that were co-op like that. There was Gauntlet. There was and basically mostly combat games, fighting games, Street Fighter type games.
It was a side-scrolling beat 'em up. You could obviously play as any one of the turtles, and you just button mashed 8 pizzas beat the shit out of people.
Yeah. And of course, arcades were very popular social gathering places. Mostly guys. Yeah. Mostly guys. But, there's some interaction with other teenagers.
Yeah. If you had a console at home, you were pretty flash.
Yeah, you were a true nerd
at that time.
Yeah.
Or you just had really nice parents. Not that my parents weren't nice. It's just they weren't going to spend money on a console.
Yeah, they worked very hard to put food on the table.
It was not a priority.
Yeah. But of course, back then, it was, playing video games was seen as a waste of time. Not an industry, not a source of inspiration, not a social activity, not any source of possible future income could come from video games. It was, it was just child's play. Yeah. That was a pervading attitude of everyone, including the people who played them.
I had a computer. Well, I don't know if you'd call it a computer, a Commodore 64.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wasn't allowed a console.
As a computer, it's better than it's a bit more complicated than a hand calculator.
Yeah, slightly.
You have to program it yourself, but yes, slightly.
Yeah, the floppy disks were floppy.
Mm-hmm.
Games came on cassettes.
Chop out the side of it to make it permanent. Yeah. Oh man.
So due to all this popularity, it was only a matter of time before we got a movie. So in 1990, we got a live action movie. So this movie was produced by Golden Harvest. So Golden Harvest took this movie. No one wanted it. They were trying to sell it. Disney turned it down. Sony turned it down. But Golden Harvest at the time, they were a Chinese movie studio known mainly for Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee. So they looked at it and they're like, hey, this is just going to be stuntmen in costumes fighting.
Yeah, we've got some guys that work really well in latex costumes. Yeah. It's like if it doesn't matter what they look like, we got some guys for you.
They didn't. So when they originally designed the costumes, they didn't realize how hard it was going to be to fight in them.
Yeah.
And they really struggled. Which actually brought in Jim Henson. So this is one of Jim Henson's last projects before he passed away, was creating the costume design for the Ninja Turtles. So the Ninja Turtles were guys in practical suits it was a combination of, they had robotic eyes, mouths.
Yep. Really
Splinter himself.
Very quite complicated servos with heavy rigs that, were, strapped on their backs and stuff. So
yeah, it was Splinter was actually Splinter was a puppet.
Yeah.
Voiced by the same guy that does Elmo.
Really? Wow. I'll never be able to hear it. I'll have to rewatch it and I won't be able to hear it properly again.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't age particularly well.
At the time, it was really good. At the time, it was a very good effort, I thought.
Well, comic book movies had a really bad rep in the 80s. There was a time. So obviously we had Superman in the 70s, and that was a great film.
Yeah.
But then every one of the Superman sequels got progressively
more
worse.
Comedic and worse and slapstick.
And then in between that, we also had films like Howard the Duck, Masters of the Universe. So it wasn't really until 1989 when Tim Burton did Batman that comic books started. Like Batman in 89, Ninja Turtles in 90, almost they did start like this new era of comic book movies, which obviously led on to Spider-Man, X-Men.
Yeah, it sort of percolated up from the graphic novels that came out from Miller and those guys. Very slowly but surely, the subculture always becomes the main culture, and it was on its way. But at the time, superhero movies didn't have the same gravitas that they do now, for sure. But the Turtles were always kind of seen as slapstick, funny characters, because of the way they were presented in the syndicated cartoons and comics. But the original comics, of course, as we know, they were serious characters that killed people, and like Casey Jones, the vigilante, beat people up with sports equipment in Central Park. And that's how he got to know the Turtles, because he was kind of the psycho that was, vigilanting around and beating up muckers and rapists and stuff, beating the shit out of them.
Yeah, he was just a guy with a
he was as
hockey mask
wanted.
and a whole
Yeah, he was as wanted as they were.
A golf bag full of hockey sticks and baseball bats.
Yeah.
That just decided to go out and kick people.
Yeah.
In the comics, he actually fights the Turtles to start with, and then
he's like, he thinks they're just another street gang or something, and then when he's fighting them, he's like, "What the hell are you? Yeah, what the hell are you?" Yeah. And then it was like, "You're too soft on them. You gotta show these guys, teach these guys a lesson." Breaks their legs and arms.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I mean, the live action was probably closer to the original comics than the cartoon.
Yeah. If the live action was more like the comic books, it would be more like Fight Club. Yeah, this crazy,
But I mean, it had a budget of it had a budget of 13 million in the end, which they struggled with. It went way. I think they originally got a budget of 5 million, and then they went over and they had to go see Raymond Chow, who's the head of Golden Harvest, and asked for more money, and he had to raise more money, and they didn't think it was going to make its money back. They thought they were just going to break even.
Right.
So with its 13 million budget, it ended up grossing $202 million worldwide.
Wow.
Yeah. Which fast-tracked its sequel. So Ninja Turtles 2. So Ninja Turtles 1 came out in 1990. Ninja Turtles 2 came out in 1991. So they filmed, edited, and got that film out in less... Because they had this feeling it was just a phase. It was just going to burn out. Like, people were going to get sick of the Turtles and, like, just milk this cow while it's popular.
Yeah. They would have been literally like, "No, don't get on the plane. You have to stay in the studio." Yeah, no, it's immediately successful. You have to stay here. We're making another movie immediately.
And people like Disney and Sony were suddenly coming, like, approaching them, going, "Oh, hey, we'll take that now." And like, they good on Eastman and Laird told them to get fucked and say, "Nah, we're going to stay with these guys." So Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, didn't do as well. The only thing I really remember about it is it had Vanilla Ice cameo.
Oh, yeah.
Ninja rap.
Yeah.
Go Ninja, go Ninja, go Ninja.
Well, I mean, to be fair, like, Bobby Brown showed up in a Ghostbusters movie, so...
Yeah. So that one had a budget of 25 million and only made 78, which is still a success.
Not bad. Yeah, it's only a failure when you compare it to the first one. I mean, otherwise that would have been a fantastic success story in and of itself.
It was criticized for not really having much of a story, which when you look at the turnaround of the film,
yeah, I mean, really, people just wanted to see more of the same, and they kind of were satisfied with that. I mean, picking up $75 million worth of fans who just went and saw it because it was Turtles, essentially.
Yep, and then they gave it a 2-year break before they came back with Ninja Turtles 3. I don't think I ever
actually wrote a script this time. Yeah.
Yeah, they considered Ninja Turtles 3 to be actually the proper sequel.
Yeah.
It's got time travel in it, where they go back to Japan, feudal Japan.
Yeah, and that tied in with the transdimensional TMNT role-playing game as well.
Yeah.
Because that was exactly what happened in that.
I've never watched this one, to be honest. I probably need to
check
that out.
It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that one had a budget of 21 million and made 54. So each film slowly, obviously made less money. I think it was
a respectable return, but still, yeah. They could see the writing on the wall.
Around this time as well, they decided to let Archie Comics do a run on the Turtles. So from 88 to 85, they sort of created something called the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Adventures, which was aimed at a younger audience.
Mm-hmm. More like more like a Scooby-Doo comic.
It had very much Archie. So I don't know if kids know who Archie. Oh yeah, Riverdale's popular, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that wasn't too long ago.
Archie's a Kiwi, mate. Yeah,
I never watched it.
Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah,
sorry, Kiwi actor. No, it just wasn't my cup of tea.
Yeah. Growing up in the 80s, for me, Archie comics were the closest thing I could probably get to pornography.
Well, I lived in a fishing town, so it was in the dumpsters at the wharf. That's where the fishermen will throw all their adult magazines. So yeah.
I had an Archie versus the Punisher comic.
Wow.
Crossovers, mate.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Crossovers were big for a while.
Mirage Studios, they sort of remained open to 1984 to 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And then IDW Publishing took over, and they still currently have the rights. There was a live action series created in 1997 as well, which featured a female turtle called Venus de Milo. I know nothing about these.
Me neither.
And they also did a crossover with the Power Rangers in space.
Oh, okay. I really like the stuff that was in the comic book for the space turtle stuff, and the way that they treated the Utrom aliens, the stranded aliens, was quite different in the original comic. So the Utrom were not bad guys. They didn't have Krang. They were just like a peaceful alien species that were trying to get back to their home planet, and they were building a teleporting device that would work between planets called a transmaterial device. Basically a teleporter. But the side effect of making it was to produce this radioactive ooze. And Eric Wujcik kind of ran with this idea that a significantly advanced civilization would always fall prey to mutation due to pollutants that are produced due to its high technology. That was his concept. Kind of like he was sort of Frank Herberting, like what would cause civilizations to fall apart on a galactic scale. And so he introduced different species like the Spiny-Contuber, are alien species that were once a dominant galactic empire, but they fell to mutation and turned into different subspecies. And their society fell apart because these different groups of mutants would gravitate to different roles in society and break it up into just like natural different subcultures that become genetic variants of the species. Really cool idea. And the Utroms are kind of like, they're just little mutant blobs in the first place. So it's really a characterization through comic caricature of like, they don't even have arms and legs anymore. They build robots bodies to house them and move around. And that was like a cool idea. Then you got the Triceratons, who are this advanced sort of militant race, but their home world's been destroyed. So they fly around, and the fragments of their planet is now great big space arcologies that they fly around, with their space fleets, which is a really cool concept. And they look like big Triceraton aliens, dinosaurs. And their mutation is that when they encounter an atmosphere that they're not familiar with, they sort of collapse and cough a bit, and then their lungs mutate, and they can breathe the atmosphere of whatever planet they land on. So they've got a mutant factor in there as well, which, yeah, it's great concept stuff and really great artwork.
Yeah, I should probably seek out more of his stuff. What I've read so far of what those PDFs you gave me, I was I wish I'd discovered that when I was younger.
Yeah. Oh, we can play anytime, man. My door definitely see the appeal. My couch is always open for a Palladium game for sure.
So in 2012, they did a third animated series, which featured CG. It was more CGI.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got a fourth animated series in 2018 called Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This was a Nickelodeon, so I guess we'll go when Nickelodeon took over. And I've actually seen a bit of this one because my kids have watched it. It's actually pretty cool. It's got a more lighter sense of humor. It's definitely more anime influenced.
Yeah, the art is kind of hit and miss with me with the modern ones. They either go really simplistic, stylistic choices, and that seems to have been a vibe over quite a long time with the Turtles. They've become very, caricatures of themselves, kind of.
There was a film that came out in 2007, which I remember, but I completely forgot about, called TMNT.
Mm.
I even think I went to the cinema to watch it, but I don't remember a thing about it at all.
Much more combination of live action and CGI. Very complicated, fast moving scenes. Very hectic, frenetic pace throughout the movies. Yeah, lots of high flying actions. Them on rooftops and guns and explosions and things.
So, Eastman and Laird, they didn't have a falling out, but Laird didn't really want to carry on doing the Turtles. I don't think he intended something that they jokingly drew in front of a TV at midnight in 1984 to be something he'd be doing for the rest of his life.
yeah, as you'd imagine. Yeah.
And he was,
I can draw other things. Yeah.
Yeah. Something that they financed for one issue to still be sort of making money. So from 1984 to 2009, it was Eastman and Laird still pretty much still own the rights to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles under Mirage Studios.
Mm-hmm.
They both held equal ownership and creative control. Peter Laird, though, sold his share to a place called Viacom, which is actually now owned by Paramount.
Right.
That sale actually ended Mirage Studios' direct involvement with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Paramount took over. Paramount was then bought out by this Viacom was bought out by Nickelodeon.
Right.
And Nickelodeon ended up acquiring the rights to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in 2009. And that's pretty much what led to what we would refer to as the Michael Bay era of Turtles.
Yeah.
Which is where they decided to do a combination of CGI and live action.
Mm-hmm.
What's your thoughts? So, what's your thoughts on these Michael Bay? So, first off, I want to say I actually thought Michael Bay directed these. He didn't. He was just a producer. But both films clearly have his stink all over them.
Yeah, they're very much got a theme. Yeah. Like at least they didn't like the Transformers was very much Michael Bay's theme. So you have kind of anachronistic personalities that are sort of wedged into all of his movies. Same sort of characters.
I want to. Why are the fucking turtles so big in this film?
They are much more muscular and large. They're kind of built like snapping turtles and
the Hulks.
Yeah,
it's 4 Hulks.
Yeah,
they're not ninjas.
Yeah, I guess he went with the. I'm not entirely sure. He went with the original, like first live action movie, and went with the bulk of those guys wearing costumes and kind of ran with it. But he could have gone a lot leaner with this one because they're all just motion capture and stuff. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe so he could sell more plastic toys. I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm just glad we didn't have any shots of like turtle balls in this movie because that would have been too much. That would have been on brand.
So Johnny Knoxville did the voice of Leonardo. I didn't know that, and I think his name is Alan Richardson, who is what's his TV show on Amazon? Jack Reacher.
Oh, that guy.
He's one of the two.
Yeah, he plays Hawk from Hawk and Dove and Teen Titans.
Yeah, so he's one of the turtles as well.
Yeah.
So in this reboot, New York City faces peril from the Foot Clan led by Shredder, as 4 mutated brothers, Leonardo, Michelangelo, Donatello, and Raphael, emerge to protect the city, aided by reporter April O'Neil and Vern Fenwick, who is played by Megan Fox, and Will, what was his name? The guy from Arrested Development.
It's basically Megan Fox is played by Megan Fox. Playing Megan Fox. In a different crop top.
It doesn't make sense why they're ninjas in this film to me, or teenagers. They don't feel like teenagers, and they don't feel like ninjas.
Yeah.
They feel like Hulk.
Yes. They feel like adults, steroided, wrestler acrobats.
Yeah, and Shredder doesn't have any sort of like martial art. Like, there's no martial art sort of influences there. I mean, they could have just got guns.
Yeah,
they found in the sewers instead, and been the Teenage Mutant Gun Turtles.
yeah,
and just shoot every.
yeah.
shoot
Adolescent, social outcast, gun mirrors. Yeah, it's got a ring to it. Yeah, well,
it exists. It came out. It exists. It's a film.
Yeah.
Um.
Yeah, that suffers from rehash syndrome. So, like every single Batman movie, they've got to have like the origin and the pearl beads and like Mom, Dad. They've got to have that scene, and Spider-Man's got to have the Uncle Ben scene. It's just like, come on, look, we know where they come from at this stage. Like, please.
It made money. 150 million budget, 485 million profit.
Yeah.
So enough to make a sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah, Baxter Stockman is the baddie in the sequel. We also get introduced to Casey Jones, played by Stephen Amell from Arrow.
Yeah, Baxter Stockman is, he is a bad guy in the original comic. He produces these.
Issue 2.
Yeah.
Issue 2. He is originally April O'Neil's boss in issue 2, and he invents the mouses.
Yep.
Which are like little robot dogs that go around hunting rats.
Yes, they're originally designed as pest control, and then they turn to crime. Well, they
rob banks.
They are turned to crime. Yeah, it's like, oh, actually, these could break into bank vaults and steal me a lot of money. But that was like he was doing it for a reason, I think.
Yep. And also introduced Krang in number 2 as well.
Yeah, quite a departure from the original character.
And Bebop and Rocksteady.
Yeah. 2 other mutant animals, which is kind of that was interesting because that was the first incident we had of other mutants around, other than the Turtles and Shredder.
Well, they were toys. They were like Playmate wanted to sell more toys, so they just started making like different. I think the thing was, let's just get a mundane job and an animal, and then combine it and give them some weird weapon. So let's make a fireman and an ant, or
I mean,
and they were just throwing designs at the wall.
I mean,
and they're just giving them like really 90s sort of Mountain Dew Dorito type.
I mean, like, yes, if you reduce the artwork down to its basic level, yes, it's basically that. But I mean, it looks very cool. It's a vibe. Yeah. And there's a lot of people with tattoos of those mutant animals from those original role-playing games. Like the opossum with the shotgun, I considered getting that one as a tattoo. That was really good.
I think, didn't they have snot guns? Was there one? There was some quite gross animals that came out of that thing.
Yeah.
We liked gross things back in the 80s, though, didn't we? Like, you had those mad balls and...
I mean, we invented sour confectionery. Yeah, getting slimed was very big in theme parks and game shows. Ghostbusters, getting slimed. How Ghostbusters 2 was all about slime.
Yeah, so this sequel didn't do as well and pretty much killed that franchise. Put that on hiatus.
The Turtles look just too weird, really.
Yeah. And then after sort of the success, I guess, of the animated films like Spider-Verse, they took another shot, but this time old Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, who did Superbad, Pineapple Express, they took a shot at it. Have you seen this one?
Yeah, I have seen bits of it, and it was a much better effort, I thought.
It is good. I went to the cinema to see this with my kids, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So the first thing, the animation style itself is very similar. It does pay a lot of homage to the Eastman and Laird era of illustrations.
Yeah, it does, but it's also very Nickelodeon.
Yep, and also, the Turtles were actually played by teenagers. They were a bunch of no-named teenage kids, and they were really smart. They got these kids to hang out together and get to know each other. So a lot of the sort of riffing and stuff was just completely ad-libbed. It also features a really stellar voice cast in the background. So you got John Cena as Rocksteady, Seth Rogen as Bebop, Rose Byrne as Leatherhead, Jackie Chan as Splinter.
Yeah, crazy big names. Yeah.
Ice Cube as Superfly, Paul Rudd as Mongo Gecko. Yeah, so it just had really
crazy, right?
Really cool.
Yeah, crazy.
Cool voice cast.
Yeah, it's amazing that the turnaround for voice acting for actors now is really popular. So yeah, and Jet Black and guys like that have really paved the way. Like Jet Black is a voice acting megastar with all the Kung Fu Panda and all that sort of stuff. And what a great gig!
And Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails did the score. So I mean, he's done some fantastic scores. Him and Atticus Ross. I think they were both in Nine Inch Nails. They've done all the scores recently for. They do a lot of shit. What's the director's name? I've gone blank. He did Fight Club and Seven. Oh my god.
Yeah, that guy.
Mind fart. But this did really well. It's got it made money. They're going to do a spin-off cartoon, I think, coming out later this year or early next year. And obviously Seth Rogen, it had his humor through it as well.
Yeah, which I appreciate.
Yeah. So, and apart from that, I recently read so when we decided to do this, I decided to read some Turtles again. And I just read a 5-issue run of a comic called The Last Ronin. Now, have you heard of this comic?
No.
So it's actually written by Kevin Eastman. So he returned back to it. It's based on an old story from him and Peter Laird. He does illustrations in it as well, Eastman. He's not the main illustrator. It is set in an alternative future where New York City is ruled by the grandson of Shredder. There's only one turtle left alive. He is the last turtle. And he sees the other turtle. You don't know who it is at first. It doesn't tell you who it is, and I don't want to spoil it for people that haven't read it. But he talks like he sees the other turtles, like imaginary. And it tells you, so it's
kind of like Rogue Trooper and Bagman and Helm and Gunner.
It's like Escape from New York to start with. So he has to sneak, like New York's become this fortified city that's run by the Foot, led by Shredder's grandson. Everyone has been driven underground. He breaks into the city with the agenda to kill Shredder's grandson, and everything's. But when it goes into the flashback sequences, of all the flashback sequences, illustrated by Eastman, and they're illustrated in the original comic book style. So it's like modern art, and then he'll go back and he'll reflect on something from the past, and those panels all
very cool,
black and white. And it is Eastman that does those illustrations.
That's real fan service when you think about it. That's great.
Yeah, it's become so popular that it's going to now be adapted into a video game for PlayStation, and a film is currently in development for it as well.
Wow.
It's really dark, dystopian. It is the Dark Knight Rises of Ninja Turtles comics. I'd highly recommend it, man.
Nice. I'll have to check
pretty
it out.
much.
I'm looking forward to the cartoon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the game. If it's anything like the recent Spider-Man games on PlayStation.
Well,
and I guess that kind of takes us to the end of what I've got to say.
Can we loop back to the role-playing games? I'm very focused on the role-playing games because that was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was our gateway into Palladium, and Palladium was the gateway into so many different games.
Why do you think they're so popular? Why have they just endured over something that was obviously just a joke?
Yeah, I'm not sure really. Just an abiding sort of coolness of the name, the fact that it was so bankable. It was just weird enough, and it just had those magical elements of mutation, ninjas, and
turtles.
Yeah, and being a team of brothers, who were different from everybody else, had their own sort of family dynamic going on, as well as being this outlandish thing. So they're kind of like on the periphery of society.
When you heard the name, you wanted to check it out.
Yeah.
If someone said, "Oh, have you heard of this?" You're immediately intrigued just by the name,
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
And the concept.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite? Turtle?
For me, I think it's always been Leonardo, the one, the Cyclops character, keeping the team together.
Yeah,
I think.
I growing up, it was Michelangelo. I've always been a bit of a joker. As I've gotten older and grumpier, it's become Raphael.
Right. Yeah. He's the scream at the kids to get off the lawns kind of turtle. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the Wolverine. He's just down to he just wants to fight.
Yeah.
And smash shit.
They've gone really extreme on the actually those Michael Bay movies. They went really extreme on the turtles' personality differences. So yeah.
I mean, those turtles were like flipping buses and shit in that film.
It was kind of crazy, and he was like a super inventor. So they were surfing the tunnel walls on things, and yeah, it was kind of weird.
Yeah, Donatello had like so much shit on him, like
yeah. He
was like a Game Boy.
Yeah, he was a real gadgeteer. It was just like, oh, so he invents stuff. It's like, yeah, so cover his body in gadgets. It's like, well, he's still a ninja, Oh no, but that's fine. There
was no ninjas in there.
They're indestructible. They can basically fly through the sewers. Yeah. So basically, don't worry about it. But they were the equivalent of Marvel superheroes in that movie. Basically.
Yeah, there was very limited ninja stuff happening. Yeah. So go back to the game, mate.
Right. Well, so we combined that game with a lot of other SDC titles in Palladium. So those were Ninjas and Super Spies, as I said. So that was all the different martial arts types and stuff. There was Mystic China, so that had Wujin ninjas, also Wujin sorcerers and stuff. So you could play real Big Trouble in Little China storylines where you had actually fighting monsters from beyond the supernatural. So it was Cthulhu type stuff you can mix into it.
I'm going to put my hand up to interrupt you. Casey Jones,
mm-hmm.
He was inspired by Big Trouble in Little China.
Right. Yeah. So
Kurt Russell's character. That's the genesis of his character.
Fits perfectly. You wouldn't
Jack Burton.
Yeah, you wouldn't really pick it because Jack Burton, of course, uses guns.
Yeah. They were literally They went and watched issue 2. Just before they did issue 2, they went to the movies and watched Big Trouble in Little China, and then came back and I think it was Peter Laird drew Casey Jones.
Nice.
Based on Kurt Russell. Anyway, sorry about that.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, excuse me. Yeah. So. The role-playing games blended really well together, and so you could put the mutants into a superheroes type game, beyond the supernatural type Cthulhu investigation story, or like an SCP type story. You could have gadget characters that had concealed firearms, and we had superhero characters that had gadgets as well, like my friend Max had a character called Super Bunny, who was a guy who was obsessed with bunnies, but he was also basically like the Punisher, and he modified and changed all his weapons. So he had like a bazooka that fired carrots of different ammunition types, and nipple gripple seeking pneumatic darts and stuff that would latch onto you and with hydraulic force twist your nipples off your body. Quite serious weapons, but the themes were hilarious.
My brain is just thinking of catchphrases for a carrot.
Yeah,
bazooka.
Yeah. It was fantastic. And I was, of course, drawing all these characters that he was doing. So, yeah, Super Bunny was one of the best. Just like this hulking dude in a bunny suit. You don't take him seriously, but he's actually like a maniac with like military weapons. Yeah. So that was what we spent our afternoons doing, was making lots and lots of different characters and running short adventures with these characters where we'd try them out and basically move on to the next character, because making characters was so much fun and it was so easy to do. And we spent a lot of time coming up with villains as well. And yeah, it was usually just like us against the villains of the week that I was running in whatever scenario they were in. Usually they were pretty straightforward, like it was bank heist or taking over a nuclear power plant or protests
the
or
suggested adventures in the back of that book are pretty
straightforward.
Yeah, they're pretty.
Yeah, the cliches work for a reason. And yeah, really the characters and their abilities shine over anything else, and you just set it in the real world and you can't go wrong. Like it's as easy as picking up Google Maps and saying, okay, that shopping mall is where we're taking place, and we just run everything off Google Maps. It's that easy, you know. You don't need miniatures.
I think that's one of the reasons why the Turtles are popular as well. Is I think they fit into so many different. Like it's silly, it's a silly concept, but you can make it dark. You can make it like kiddie friendly.
Mm-hmm.
It can slot into all these different genres.
Yeah.
And it has. And I think you can have your dark, broody Ninja Turtle comic, and at the same time you can have your Archie Ninja Turtle era, or your, and it's the essence is still there. It still keeps that essence of might not be cool for me, that one, but it still appeals to someone, and I think that is the enduring thing about them as well.
Yeah, it's got all the elements you need for a successful role-playing game, even a contemporary successful role-playing game, because you can, as you say, take it to a convention, a gaming convention, and have an adventure set up, which is non-confrontational. Like it doesn't have to involve guns and things like that. It can be as simple as problem-solving, communicating with the NPC who's confused, and de-escalating situations so everybody walks away happy. That can be just as tense and exciting as charging in guns blazing with lasers and aliens and slavering monsters. You can have those in your home games as well. It's a really good performance and comedy style game as well. Like that enduring like mutant martial arts, high flying action stuff, and so you can have a stage show which is like going and watching Big Trouble in Little China, take place in front of you, impromptu, full improv comedy. So yeah, it's got all the elements that you need for a successful role-playing game, is what I'm saying, across all the different spectra. Even today.
You actually just reminded me of a fact that I learnt that I completely forgot about. After the success of the movies, there was a Ninja Turtle concert that toured around America.
Oof.
And an album, and it sold millions, and it was sponsored by Pizza Hut, I believe.
Well, that makes sense. It's all fitting together now. Big pizza, and it's big pizza.
They basically had a Wiggles concert, but it was a bunch of them all dressed in turtle costumes.
Terrifying.
And it just toured around America, and it made millions.
Did they?
Obviously, we didn't.
No, nothing on ice. Nothing, no musicals on ice. No. Nothing like that reaches us here in little old New Zealand, thankfully.
No.
Yeah, but the enduring like t-shirts, lunchboxes. They'll dig up an archaeological layer of plastic toys and memorabilia, and it'll be the Turtles era. Before that, I think was the Smurfs. And, Snorks and Smurfs.
You used to get Smurfs when you got petrol from a certain service station.
Yeah, that's right.
Back in the day.
I think there was only a couple. There was Mobil and Shell, BP.
Yep.
Yeah, but
I used to like the smell of them.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
They were hard plastic.
The first thing I'd do is like smell it.
They were hard, squeaky plastic that you just barely bend a little bit. Yeah, Smurfs were these indestructible toys that just there were thousands of them around New Zealand just for years and years.
Yeah,
you can still dig them up under people's houses.
It was funny, like how like these they thought the Turtles were going to end up like the Cabbage Patch Kids, like this weird thing that was just going to burn out. It was never going to have any long wasn't going to be around. It was just a phase.
Yeah, they were just cashing in while they could. They're like, oh, this is a good comic, seems popular, so let's just market the hell out of it. It's basically
no one had faith in it.
No,
including the creators.
Yeah, they probably didn't want it to endure. Like, come on, man, joke's over. Can you draw me another turtle? Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that they've embraced it now. I mean, gosh, how rich would they be?
Yeah. Well, it's a legacy.
Yeah.
I never thought
You have anything else?
I'd be making monster videos on
Monster
YouTube,
videos.
but yeah, here we are.
Yeah.
No, I have nothing more to add on the Turtles, I'm afraid. Big shout out to my original gaming group and all of our harebrained adventures. I think it's the first. I think it came out. Dungeons and Dragons probably came out with ninjas around the same time that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
85 it was released, but I don't know when it was out in New Zealand.
I'm not sure when Oriental Adventures was released when Dungeons and Dragons, but they had ninjutsu.
Oriental.
Yeah. It was a different time. It was a different time.
Yeah.
Men were men.
There was a lot of ninja stuff in the 80s.
Walking around in cod pieces. Yes, back in Edwardian England when it was first written. The morals were different, We didn't quite we didn't interact with the lady folk. Yes. They were in the kitchen doing their darning. Back when lace was back when people made lace by hand, like it was supposed to be. Okay. I'm done.
All right. I'll wrap it up, eh? Are we going to go back to D&D next week, or what? Oh, we can play it by ear.
I think you're avoiding the big ticket item, which is my vast knowledge of Warhammer 40,000.
Oh, I am scared of Warhammer. I've got the books here. I think we need to sort of finish off D&D, but
yeah,
we'll see. We'll but anyway, it's a bit of a shorter episode this week. But thanks for joining us on Wizards and Warp Drives. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Leave a review or a comment. Let us know what you think. Also, make sure to check out AJ's YouTube channel.
You can find me on all your favorite places.
Yeah, it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
Yeah, good night.